Well, another day. Another day. Here we are. We're doing it. Another pod going into the ether. I don't know what ether means, if I'm being honest, but pretty sure that's the correct usage. Thanks for being here, guys. Excited to be at the weekend. It's been busy, busy, busy. Always busy, which is good, but also exhausting. Never stop. As they say, what do they say? I don't know. Insert some motivational grind phrase about how you got to grind and do all this stuff. But got some good sleep last night, or a decent amount of sleep, uh, which has been rare or getting rarer. But glad to be here. Thanks for joining. I was just checking my phone. I'm not sure. I think I should have enough space to record the video here. I never check. I can't remember what I have. Maybe 500 gigs. I think it's a pretty big storage, which is pretty incredible. Pretty incredible the jumps that we have made. I don't have an idea how technology works or how storage works, but I do know that in 10th grade I took computer class, and at that point we had floppy disks which were like 500 kilobytes of storage, which is so funny. A floppy disk was like the size of my phone right now. And you'd push it in there and you'd be like, all right, I can save 3 Word files. I better choose wisely. I don't understand how video games and stuff were made back then. Like in a cartridge. You're like, how are you fitting all that information? I'm surprised it wasn't like, you got to go buy a book and it's just like the size of a coffee table. You just push that into the console that's also the size of a coffee table, and you just link those up, and then you can play Mario Brothers, which was a fun game. I never had those video games. Sorry, I feel like I've got snot in my sinuses. I just ate a bunch of oatmeal, and I don't think oatmeal gives you sinuses or makes that an issue, but I feel it. I had honey and coconut and peanut butter and banana in preparation for a run that I'm hopefully going to do after this. Going to try to get a long one and get back on the run grind. But yeah, I never had. Speaking of Mario Brothers, that was a very fun game. Was it Mario, or it was just called Mario? On obviously a bunch of different consoles. I never had PS1 was the first. PlayStation 1 was the first thing I got. Console I got. I guess I got a Game Boy Color before that. But also pretty amazing. You had those little cartridges that you'd push in. Boy, when you got one of those, dude. Because back when you're younger, you don't have money. You're just hoping that your parents buy you things that you want. And the Game Boy itself, I think it was like $100, but that's like a pretty big gift as a child. So I got at some point I got that, but usually it's like, all right, well, we're gonna get you the Game Boy, but you get one game, and then you have to save up for the rest. It's like, okay, I'm 11. I don't have a savings, but I guess I'll save. That's also funny too. When you're a child, your savings is just, I hope I have a good birthday and Christmas. You're like, that's it. That's the only time money comes in. I'm not making money anywhere else. I can't remember if I don't think I got an allowance. There may have been a brief period where it was like, if you do X amount of chores, you get a small allowance. I don't remember that as being a thing, and if it was, it wasn't a consistent thing. As I got older, like teenage years, I think if I mowed the lawn, I would maybe get a few dollars. But yeah, it was tough, until I started working, like as a lifeguard, as my first job, and making actual, money, which at that point was $6 an hour, so not a ton of money. But it wasn't until that point that I was able to, have some money and buy things. and I wasted all of that money on golf clubs. It's so funny. I worked an entire summer and would make $1,500, $2,000 for an entire summer, which is so funny to be like, yeah, I worked 3 months full time, made 2,000. You're like, I could have been a full time lifeguard at that point, made $8,000 a year. Sorry, Oatmeal Snot. That's the name of the episode. Oatmeal Snot. That's what they want. Okay, these episode titles. It's like, what are 2 random words that are said in or during the podcast that are silly and funny, and then just make that the episode. So there you go. Episode 57, 6, whatever. I'm on. Pretty wild. Honestly, I guess I've gotten in the routine of doing this podcast to the point where like it doesn't, I mean, it's laborious. There's labor and effort involved, but like it's just kind of become part of my routine to where I'm not like thinking about it too much as far as like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. So time flies by and you're like, wow, 50 something things, 56, 57 episodes I've done every week in a row. I've clicked on my phone camera, my video, and I've plugged in this mic and I've said garbage into it for 45 minutes. Pretty incredible feat right there. But I forget what I was talking about before. What I was talking about video games, cartridges, lifeguarding. And I spent all of that money on golf clubs, which that was my life at that point. So that's all I did. I cared very deeply about it, but golf clubs are very expensive. So I would make like $2,000 during the summer, and if you bought like a driver, it was like $500. Then you buy a wedge or 2 wedges for $100 each, and then 3 woods, $200. And you buy 12 balls for $50. A new bag for $100, and he goes, "There's my entire savings account from this summer. I guarded lives for hours and hours, and now I have a new Titleist club." You know? So that's where we're at, guys. Video games, I don't remember. I probably bought some video games back then, but we weren't allowed to do teen or mature games. It had to be E for everyone, the rating. And so a lot of sports games used to play, but those were always fun. I was very into that, but we also had limited access to playing, so it was probably a pretty healthy relationship with the TV and the video game system to not get too addicted. I knew a lot of people when I went to college in 2006. I met a lot of people who sounded like their high school was wild, just a totally different experience than mine. My high school was, you go to school, you do whatever sport practice or game afterwards, and that was it. You'd fit in a couple, you'd fit in video games every once in a while, this or that, but it's like, all right, you got to go to bed by 9, 10 o'clock, whatever time. And a lot of people I met in college, they came from a totally different background where it was like, yeah, dude, we were introduced to whether it was video games, whether it was PC or a console. Like, yeah, dude, all of high school, I'd go to school, and then I would get home and I would play Halo until 2 a.m. every night. And I'd just be online talking to friends. And then on the weekends, we'd get together and have sleepovers, and we'd all play Halo together. That and not Call of Duty, Counter-Strike. There's like a PC war game. I don't know if I've ever played it before, but that was like a very popular one during that time as well, I think. And it was like, oh my gosh, dude. Just the thought, I was like, I can't believe it was such a foreign thought to me. It's like your parents let you just come home and sit in your room where you're allowed to have a TV and console in your own room, and you can just play at leisure. You can play for as long as you. That's insane. I was like, oh my God, no rules. That sounds awesome. So very different experience, but a lot of people did that. Now, when I went to college, I took advantage. I made up for lost time, as they say, and I played many of many of hours of Halo throughout the night. Pretty insane. I mean, I'll play video games every now and again, but like the novelty of how awesome a video game is it's no longer it's doesn't capture me like it used to. They're fun, but I mean, I'm telling you, I remember, and I've probably said this before, but I remember when Halo 3 first came out. I was a sophomore in college. I was living in uh, Muse, the building, the student building, the dorm. That's the word I'm looking for. It was called Muse. It was a 13-floor freshman building. Now, the funny part about that is I didn't live there as a freshman. Most freshmen live there. But I'm an idiot, and when I was choosing my dorm, like they ask you what's your preferred dorm, I didn't know. Like I just did not know that Muse was a freshman thing. I had other friends that lived there. I should have asked them, but I was too stupid to do that. And so they gave you, I think, 3 or 4 options. I chose 2 or 3 of the options that I chose were buildings that had AC, which wasn't standard. And I like check marked the box, like, I do not want to pay extra for housing that has AC. So I just chose a bunch of places that already I was disqualified for. And I think the other place that I selected, which I ultimately lived at, was Washington dorm, which was the ROTC dorm. So it wasn't even, there might have been some freshmen, but it was mostly like, it was very calm and quiet. And I think just people who were like more serious about school and in ROTC and had schedules where they had to get up early and stuff like that. Whereas Muse was like, hey, this is the college experience. You get to live here with a bunch of other freshmen who are excited to meet each other and this and that. So I didn't live there freshman year, but I spent most of my time there at my friend's place freshman year. So I felt like, I missed out. But then sophomore year, I ended up living there, which was hilarious because then I was just a sophomore living surrounded by freshmen, which that's most of my life, where I just like missed the mark on every level. And then it's like, well, let's go back and do it. And then you're like, well, it's too late now. But anyways, sophomore year, Halo 3 came out, and I bought an Xbox 360. Okay, again, lifeguard earnings earned, $2,000. I was like, I've got $300 to put down. And so I bought that in Halo 3, and I remember pulling an all-nighter, playing, I guess we must have been playing online. Dude, online, when you're connected with other people across the world, is unbelievable. Like now we just take it for granted, but that was my first experience with it. Like up to that point, I just played, you get a game and you play it as is. You're like, this is the campaign mode. I'm playing not connected to the internet. I'm just playing whatever campaign. I'm playing against the AI bots or whatever that stink, and you play and you beat the game in 10 hours, and that's kind of it. But then getting to a point where I was like, we can play against other people, because my first introduction to it, I didn't even know about like playing against other people. What they would do and what you could do with the dorm is, because it was 13 levels, there's tons of people, and there's a decent amount of people that are playing video games. So you would do you'd like link up to the local Ethernet or whatever it's called. So like anybody who's in the dorm, you'd be able to get on and play. So that was like, oh my gosh, we can play somebody 10 floors down? This is incredible. And then jumping from that to, dude, you can play anybody in the world? This is insane. You just go, yeah, I want to play, and it syncs you up with these players. And I remember sitting with my future roommate. He wasn't my roommate at the time, but good college buddy, Trevor. And we were sitting in my dorm room, and we played until the sun came up, and we both had to go to 8 a.m. classes. We played from probably 10 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., so almost 10 hours. And the funniest part about it is we were so like interested and excited to play this game that my roommate, I mean, it's a dorm. I have a roommate. He's sleeping literally 10 feet away. So we have the game on silent, on mute. The TV is on mute. And we're just hyper focused playing this game for 10 hours straight, not talking to each other, not hearing volume, just little 19-year-old psychopaths who are obsessed with this new Halo game. And I tell you what, that was fun. I enjoyed that. That was very, very fun. And I rode that I rode that wave for the next couple of years, playing Halo nonstop. And I will say Halo 3 was the first game that really captivated me and got me excited, and I was playing all the time. And after Halo 3, it's never been the same. That's the one game that sucked me in, and everything else just like chasing the dragon, You're like, it's just not the same feeling. I think a big part of it is you get older and you just have more responsibilities. But also that's like I said, that was a point in my life where I was introduced to like a first person shooter kind of for the first time that was like popular. B, playing online for the first time and like being blown away, like, oh my gosh, you can play online. And then there's a competitive aspect to where you put in more time and you get better and you like level up and all this stuff. So all that together in that moment in time was a special thing. I mean, everybody has those examples in their life where they're like, this was a very fun thing, but it's no longer. It was a moment in time, a moment in my life, but same with college in general. Like college was a great experience, but if I went back to college now to get a degree or whatever, you're like, it's a totally different experience. You can't just go back and relive and recreate most things in your life. It's like it had a time and place. It was very fun, and that's what we did. So, yeah, I made up for my lack of high school video gaming in college big time, and that was a fun experience. And then outside of college, I played some video games for a little while. I got into Destiny, which was another video game that was made by the same people who made Halo, Bungie, and that was very fun. And you know what? A lot of it is just, there was an aspect, I feel the same way about golf. When I was playing golf and obsessed with it, I would play golf by myself. I'd go out there and just enjoy a round by myself. That's how into it I was. But nowadays, same with video games, it's like I don't want to play, for the most part, unless I'm playing with friends. If I can sync up and chat with friends, and it's kind of just an excuse to use it as a social medium to be like, let's hop on and just yuck it up. Same with golf. It's like you go golf with friends, you get to enjoy a nice day, you get to yuck it up. You get to just hang out, which is important. I've said it, and I was talking to a comic last night on the show that I was doing, and they were saying like they've kind of taken it easy the beginning part of this year, and tried to reset. And he was like, yeah, just trying to like ease back into it. If you're grinding too hard, then it can be tough to be creative, and you have to like allow yourself to live life and give space in order to just become passionate about things again and to get creative and allow your brain to just go through the kind of natural cycles. And I was like, you know what? That's very true. That's very true. I feel like that with comedy right now too, because I feel like I'm just doing a bunch of comedy and I'm working, and not only am I working a job that's pretty taxing, but I'm working from home by myself, which is very isolating. And it wasn't until working from home for a minute, where the novelty of like, ooh, I'm at home and I can wake up right before work starts and blah, 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 that you're like, dang, dude, there's nobody around, It'd be nice to, not only would it be nice, but it's like, as humans, we need to be around people and socialize. Otherwise you can, mentally become isolated and depressed and all these things. Um, so that is something that uh, is very true. Where you gotta, it's nice to do things by yourself, but it's also pretty important to do it with others. And so I don't know the job is fine. I think I just have to do a better job. And I've talked about this before of getting other routines in my life. So I've got the job, I've got comedy, which is great, but it's filling out most of my time. I need to make time to like get into other communities, like maybe a running community, or um maybe even get back, like when I first moved to Denver, I was doing Spanish language exchange meetups, or just like Spanish meetups where we'd meet somewhere, coffee shop, bar, whatever, and everybody would just speak Spanish to each other. And that I would like to maybe get back into that. Just, experiencing new things. It's been an interesting, and people talk about this. I don't think people talk about it enough in comedy, where like you go from the reality of comedy is as you advance, you do become more isolated, and you have to like make more of an effort to be around friends and to do things to keep the momentum going and to stay happy and mentally healthy and all those things. Because in the beginning, it's such a community. Like you're just doing open mics, you're seeing the same people every night. You become very close and tight with like your friend group pretty quickly. And you do that for, a year or two, and you're like, this is amazing, dude. I'm seeing my friends every night, and you're just yucking it up, BSing, just having a good time. But once you start to level up and get booked on more shows and this and that, then you're like, okay, I'm not going to mics as much. And I'll still go to mics some, but, most of the friends that I started with and came up with are no longer doing mics, or they're not at as many mics. So now you're going out and it's just like kind of a new group of people. And not to say like that you can't become friends with them, or that I don't want to become friends with them. That's not the case. But there is something to say about surrounding yourself, or wanting to surround yourself with people that are on the same wavelength as you, like the same mindset. Like, hey, I'm coming out here to practice, to then be able to take this to um, form this joke into something that I can put into my set or into my act. And I'm trying to work to put together this full act, this 30 minutes, this 45 minutes, this hour, whatever the case is, to be able to do this as a full-time job. So most of my friends in comedy, a lot of my friends in comedy, not everybody, but we're on similar mindsets. Like, hey, we're trying to do this, and we're trying to bounce off of each other, motivate each other, and I think that's a good thing to do. Uh, and but also, I can still, and I still am friendly with people at open mics and stuff, but it's harder to build a close bond when A, I'm not out at open mics as much, so I'm not seeing the people as much, but also B, similar to college, like bonds, you form bonds a lot stronger and quicker when you're on the same level. So, for example, when I first started open mics, and the other people around me that I'm becoming friends with are kind of just in the beginning of open mics too, you're both like, you're bonding because it's a shared experience. Like, we're both doing this, dude. Can you believe we're going on stage and like saying things to a crowd into a microphone? That's crazy. And you become friends very quickly. But now it's like I've been doing it 5 years. I'm doing a lot of shows. I've done some tours. Like I know what I want to do. So it's no longer like the novelty of, oh my gosh, I'm about to go up at an open mic. Whereas the newer people, that's what they're feeling. So it's just kind of a clashing of, not even a clashing, but it's just we're on different wavelengths. So it can be harder um to bond, and you're not having that shared experience, which makes sense. But yeah, the reality is the more shows you get, the more you're going out, and it becomes more of a job, which is great. But it is kind of the funny thing where you're like, I want to make it, and the more you make it, you're like, man, I want my friends to be around. But you can have both of those too. Like I said, I got to make more of an effort to hang out, go support friends when I'm not doing shows. Also, the other thing, which makes it a little more difficult, is I'm hosting a bunch of shows. So I'm taking equipment to a place, I'm setting the equipment up, I'm checking people in, and then I'm running the show. And then after the show, I'm breaking down the equipment, and then I'm pretty much going straight home. Whereas other people are able to, if you're just on the show, if you're just on a spot, you can show up, you're able to hang out with people because you're not worried about checking people in or setting things up. And then, if you're like, hey, do you want to go hang out afterwards? You can do that, which I could do as well as a host, but I will say, especially in a bigger city, I'm like very conscious and paranoid about taking a bunch of equipment, especially if it's not even my equipment, and then, going downtown somewhere or whatever, and the possibility of someone breaking into my car, stealing all that equipment, because I have a hatchback, and there's no trunk. Like, you can just look in the windows, and it's there. You can see the stuff, so there's no good way to hide it. Like if I had a sedan or whatever and just put it in the trunk. So I'm paranoid about that. So a lot of these shows, it's like I'm going out, I'm doing my thing, and then I'm having to head back. And by the time I get back, it's like 10:30. I'm like, I'm not going to go back out. I don't live super close. I live like 25 minutes from downtown. If I lived like right in the thick of things, if I drop stuff off at 10:30, then I could probably go out, But yeah, so it's been an interesting, as you do more and more and more, it becomes more like a job. But that's not all a bad thing. It's all cyclical. You kind of go through the period of like, I'm getting momentum, this and that, and then the hope is to like get enough momentum to then be like, all right, I'm doing this full time, and I'm now picking and choosing like my best buds, and we're gonna go do a tour, or we're gonna, we're really tight now because, if you're full time, then you have more time to hang with your buddies. I'm not able to do that during the day, obviously, because I work. So yeah, that was a long ramble about gosh knows what, nobody knows what, but just felt like that's what this podcast is. I almost called it's the weekly daily, almost called it Rambling Benjamin. Because Rambling Ben, just doesn't come off the tongue as well as Benjamin. But let's get into, what I've been up to this week. Comedy, did some fun comedy stuff. Did some fun other stuff. I let's see, what did I do? I think I took Monday and Tuesday off. Did I? Man, it's hard to remember my weeks. Everything just is smushed together as far as what I'm doing. Get these yawns out. But yeah, I think Monday and Tuesday I may have taken off. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No, excuse me. Okay. It's all coming back to me. Wow. Monday I took off. I'm trying to get better at, if I don't have new material I'm working on, and if I just need, the week before that I had shows on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Thursday through Saturday I wasn't getting back home until like midnight. There's a lot of driving. And then Sunday, I usually don't go out. So having a show, I just took Monday off. I thought it was appropriate. Tuesday, I did a new material night show. It's called Old Dogs, New Jokes. Very cool. It's like a monthly show where it's just new material night. And the guys there that run it, super funny, super cool dudes. They pull a good crowd. It's at a Dude IDK Studios, which is in like Park Hill area, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's in an area that's pretty untapped with comedy in the city, and a lot of people will come out and watch. It's a fun time. And I'll tell you what, I've been struggling to write new stuff. I need to write after this. Try to get something on paper. But I've been creatively in a rut. And so I went there and I asked one of the hosts. I said, "Hey, so like, how new does it have to be? Because I don't really have anything new. I'm probably just gonna do some stuff that's like newish, but like working." And he was like, "The whole point of this show is to do stuff you've never said before." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm gonna bomb. I'm gonna bomb so hard." And so I did. I did some new stuff. It was actually fun. It's a supportive, good crowd. So it was very fun. But I'll tell you what, I felt like my back was up against the wall the entire time. Like leading up to it, I was literally like, "You better figure something out. What are you gonna say? How is this gonna go? You're gonna bomb. Everybody's gonna hate you." But that was I did that. I did that story that I talked about on the podcast last week about how I walked out of the movie theater because I felt anxious or uncomfortable. Um, and then did a couple other things, some that worked okay, and that bee sting, getting stung in the throat by a bee story that's true that I've been trying to talk about. That's, I mean, I gotta completely redo that because whatever I'm saying now is just terrible and dumb and bad. So we'll work on that. But that was Tuesday. That was fun. Wednesday, went out and watched Dune 2. Watch the highly anticipated Dune 2, which, if you're not familiar, it's Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya, something. I don't know. There's a bunch of big actors in it and actresses. And I watched the first movie. It's based off the book Dune, and then they split the movie into two parts. And the first one came out like 2 or 3 years ago. Watched that, liked it a lot, but it was like the first half of the book, which was the slow half. So it's very cinematic, and it was like, some action and stuff in there. But it was kind of like, oh man, you just stopped it right there, and I gotta wait 2 or 3 years for the second one. But here we are, 2 or 3 years later. Watched it. I'll say this: I liked it. It was good. Um, But man, based on the reviews and just the hype and, me reading the book and the cinematography and like everything, I was like, this is going to be maybe one of the best movies of all time. And I'll say it was fine. But I thought it was going to be like a little bit better. Especially, I mean, I saw a lot of people who had watched it because it came out like a week before I went and saw it. And they were like, dude, epic, unbelievable. And it was like a 3 hour movie it was good, but I thought it was going to be a little bit better. But it's funny because that was a week. So I went and saw a movie a week after the movie that I walked out of. And this movie theater also had like, um, 10 people in it. I don't know how movie theaters are operating, how they're making money. I really don't. They're just like, who knows? Nobody was in there. But anyways, I was like, you know what? I'm not looking at anybody coming in here. We're watching this movie, okay? I want to see this movie. Um, and it was, yeah, I had a good time. I went to not Cherry Creek. That was the one I walked out of. This was Landmark in Greenwood Village, which is right by Comedy Works South, which is like a affluent suburbish area. I don't know if suburb's the right word. It's like on the outskirts of the city, by the Denver Tech Center. It's just a very affluent um, area. And yeah, like nobody was there. Almost nobody was in the theater. It was weird too. In the theater, like as we walked in the lobby area, there was like tables set up and a big, they had like posters behind or whatever you call the like banners. And it was for like, I think it was for like retirement. Something about retirement. Like this big, there's like 6 people with the table as if they were having like a get together city council type setup. It was very weird. And so they were there and they were kind of, I think, talking to people as we walked in. But when we came out, there's like 20 people that are interacting with these people and stuff. And it's just, it's a retirement thing. So it makes sense that the people are old. But it was really weird being in a movie theater and you're like, is this a movie theater or is this a retirement home? Like, what is. I didn't know the lobby of movie theaters, like, rented out for people to have a table and chat with passerbyers. I don't know. I'd never seen that before, but that was a little odd. But enjoyed the movie. Curious to hear if you guys saw it. Let me know what you think. It's been a minute since I've talked about. I'm gonna grab this here real quick. Don't look at my hair; it's very thin. It's been a while since I've talked about reading. I've started a book about stand up, and I've just been busy the last couple of weeks. Haven't gotten through much, but after watching part 2 of Dune, I've had these. I haven't read them yet, but started reading Dune Messiah, which is the second book, and then there's a third book as well, and excited to get through those. Honestly, I wasn't reading them because I had kind of forgotten. It's pretty complicated. There's a bunch of races and characters and planets and political stuff, and I had kind of forgotten all the ins and outs. So I was like, I either need to just watch the second movie to like get a better understanding of like, oh yeah, that's what was happening, or I need to read the book again, which I was like, I don't want to read the book again. So watch the movie. Now I'm reading the second one. I've heard the second book, Dune Messiah, is like just very political and kind of setting things up for the third book. Which, I've heard maybe it's not the best read, but if it's a fairly quick read and it's just a way to bridge to the third book, which is good, then I'm down for that because the first book was very good. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. Yeah. Let me know if you saw the movie. Have you read Dune Messiah or Dune Children of Corn? I don't know what the third one's called. It's something children. I don't think corn's in there. I don't know why I said that. But let me know if you saw the movie, what you thought about it, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, and if you've read the books too. I really enjoyed Dune. But let's get into some of the comedy stuff. So that was Wednesday. Thursday went to an open mic, bombed. Left the open mic, a little in my head, in my feels, for other reasons, but I digress. I then Friday, which was yesterday, had 2 shows. It was an interesting day. It's cool to have days like this, and hopefully more and more will happen. As it's kind of important to do stuff like this, especially if I want to go full time. Having multiple gigs, a corporate gig and a regular gig on the same day, pretty cool. But I did so Friday. It was interesting. Let me set it up for you. I won't go into the details, but Friday I was very anxious. I did not feel good. I felt very off. Was not feeling good. Was feeling very anxious and just one of the it happens, but when you're doing comedy and you have to go be silly man on stage, man, I tell you what, the more I'm getting booked a decent amount now, which is awesome. But now I'm running into more and more where you just have like real life stuff happening where you're not like feeling well, but you're like, I have to go perform, which stinks, dude. This is probably the worst I've felt, and had to perform not only comedy, but 2 comedies, twice, 2 shows. And not only that, they were like pretty important. The first one was, and I'll go through the details of it, but the first one I was featuring at the Improv at a corporate event, a clean corporate event. So it's like, okay, it's my first time featuring at the Improv. It's a clean show. It's for a corporate setting. So it's like, this is important that you don't mess up. Keep it clean. And then the second one, I'm hosting a Don't Tell. So it's like, I have to host. I have to set up. I have to check tickets in. I have to customer service. I have to, do that whole thing when I'm like, just mentally I was not in a happy place. So that was pretty exhausting. But with that said, fortunately, because it could have gone terribly, fortunately, I felt the shows went well, despite how I was feeling. But to run through what the shows were on so yesterday, Friday, the corporate event was at 2 p.m. So it was an early one. So I took off work a little early and went there. It was a 3-person show. There was a host on 10 minutes. I was doing 20 minutes, and then headliner doing like 45 minutes. And it was in the Improv, which is if you've never been to the Improv, it's a comedy club, but it's like a dinner theater. So it's like tables and chairs set up, and it seats 350. It's a very big room. And this is a corporate party for a company with 40 people. So, just imagine you're in, whether it's a church or a comedy club or a theater, a basketball arena, whatever, where you get this big space and then you just get a little group in the front, which is at the end of the day, we've all performed in front of small crowds as comics. Like, you just do that all the time. It's fine. But going into it, it's like, ooh, is this going to be really rough? How's this going to be? It's 2 p.m. It's very early, small crowd. What's this going to be like? Got to be clean. So the host goes up. They're a little tight in the beginning, but he kind of gets them going a little bit. And then I go up, and a lot of my clean stuff, like, I do a bunch of clean shows, but when it's like, there's a difference between clean and like PG-13, because all of my jokes fit within PG-13. But once you go to like PG, like clean, then a lot of the like better jokes are now gone. So it's like, all right, now I've just got like a bunch of like, you're like, we'll see how this goes. Fortunately, it went really well. I have a long chunk about just jobs, and that's kind of what I started on. That probably took up, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes of the set. And it was great because this corporate, like this company, they were an apartment company. So they had like 3 properties, and it was everybody in the company. So the leasing agents, the maintenance team, the office, like everything. And I used to work at an apartment complex, and I also have a joke about working at an apartment complex. So I like did my work jokes, and then I was like, "Are you guys with an apartment? What's the deal?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I used to do that." And then I went into that joke, and then I started riffing a little bit about how it's like, "Yeah, dude, when you're a leasing consultant, you come in, you're like, oh, we care so much about our residents, and we blah blah blah." But the reality is, as soon as they leave, we're like, "Oh, we hate every single person who lives here." Like, you say that you love them, but you're like, "We hate you so much." And that was like doing very well. And then and then I went to other jokes where it kind of lost a little bit of steam. It was still good, but that was by far like the most I was able to connect with them, which makes sense. Like, hey, I used to work in the exact environment that you guys did. And at the end of the day, that's all comedy. It's connecting and relating with people and saying those things in a funny way. So that was very cool. Headliner went up, did real well. The people were pretty drunk by the end of it, especially for a 2 p.m. show. But they were into it, and they were the headliners selling some stickers, and they were buying some of them. And it was funny because I was chatting with the headliner as people were coming and going, just about the show and how things went. And they were like pretty drunk. I don't know if they would have done this if they were sober, maybe, but they were asking him to sign his sticker. So they're like, "Can you sign the back of it too? Like, just in case you ever get famous, we want to have." And then because I was standing there, they're like, "You can sign it too." So I'm just like secondhand, like, okay, I'm signing somebody else's sticker. Like, yeah, you don't need, I don't have to do it if you don't want me to. But I signed a few stickers, which was funny. So yeah, did 20 minutes there. Very cool. I guess I can now say I featured at the Improv, I think, which is very cool. But then after that, went home, got all packed up, and went and did a Don't Tell show at a at like a gym space, and that was very fun. It was filled out. It's kind of tight in the beginning for the first couple comics, and then the last three comics like crushed. So it was an interesting show where you go, oh, this crowd's pretty tight, and then once they broke open, they were open. They were down to have fun. It was funny because I felt very comfortable. Like I said, I was very in my head about things and not feeling good, feeling anxious. But I think it was to the point where like sometimes you're like, when you're feeling crappy like that, then the last worry in your head is about like how these people are going to judge you, because you're like, I'm too much in my head thinking about like other stuff that's making me anxious. I'm not even considering how you guys are perceiving me. I don't care. And when you don't want to be like, I don't care about making you laugh, but like if you don't care and it allows you to be more of yourself and just like confident on stage, then I think that can be good. And that's how I felt as host. Like the crowd was tight. One of the tighter don't tells I've probably ever done. And but I was like, I don't care. I was like having a good time and staying loose. And I brought them up, to where got a laugh, and then brought on the next comic and did my job there. But it's always funny when you're like, man, you guys are like not on board, and I'm like, because sometimes if they're not on board and you're up there and you're kind of like showing that you're vulnerable and scared or whatever, then you're like, I'm losing them. They see the fear in me, so now they're tight. But it was the opposite. I was like, dude, this is actually kind of funny to me because I'm like loose up here and I'm telling these jokes that I know work, and it's not like a braggadocious thing. It's just like, I know these work. You guys are very tight, but just keep going, keep grinding at it. And then I, got the plane off at the end, and brought up the next comic. But it was a fun show. Like I said, a little tight in the beginning, but very good at the by the end. And that was last night. That was my last show. And what do I got coming up this week? I don't even remember. I think I might be doing a couple don't tells next weekend. I got to double check. Check out my calendar. Check out a show. Come see a show. Come see me do some jokes. I've been working real hard on stuff, so should be a good time. But thanks so much for listening. If you made it this far, let me know if you've watched Dune. Let me know if you connected to or hated any part that I talked about today. Good or bad comments, bring them to me. Would love to hear them. But thanks so much for listening. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys again next week.